All right. Sounds good.
It's always good when you can, go live right on time.
How about it?
Let's see here. Check my phone. There we are. Perfect. You look so much better. Got a tie
I'll do
on.
what I can, Kurt.
Done. So professional.
Yeah, I thought I would look good for y'all today.
Well, hello to everyone out there on Facebook. We'll do a quick introduction as more people hop on here, give you all some time to, get here to our Financial Wellness Wednesday. I'm Kurt Schuler, a managing broker and owner of Schuler Bauer Real Estate Services. Today we have Grant Meyer, who's a financial representative, financial advisor.
Financial advisor.
Financial advisor at Northwestern Mutual. So thank you for joining us, Grant.
Of course, happy to help.
Appreciate you coming. I know you've been in contact with a few of our agents and helped them out on their financial goals. So it only made sense to have you on here to talk to the rest of our followers that we have on Facebook.
Of course.
So, before I, jump into some of the questions that we had come in, just wanted to, give you the floor to kind of, give everyone out there kind of your background, where you come from, and, so they can get to know you a little bit more.
Of course. Appreciate that, Kurt. So my financial planning practice is located in Louisville, Kentucky. I do live in Indiana. I was born and raised in Sellersburg. So from that small town feel. But I mean, the reason I got into this industry is not because of the educational background, the schooling, or even the experiences of what I've learned, but it's from personal things that happened in my life. My mom had passed away at the age of 58, very unexpected and not, something we had planned for. And so at that age, she was not prepared in the way that, most of the folks can be prepared. And so me and my brother really had to deal with that in an unfortunate way. And so I'm just helping people not have to go through something similar that I had to go through, because it is something that you can control as far as the planning you've done. So been in it a little over 5 years now and really enjoying it. Kurt, I'm working with clients in about 26 different states, so I'm very familiar with Zoom. This has been something we've done for quite some time, but I would say that's just a little bit of background for myself. And I have bought my home through Schuler Bauer. They're great.
There you go. Best answer we've had so far on any of these lives. So let's I'd say let's jump into it on the idea of saving or preparing isn't something that's always top of mind. So for the people out there watching or who will watch later who haven't started that process, what are some tidbits or things you'd share with them that would get them thinking in the direction of preparing for the future and saving for the future?
That's a great question. And I think it varies a little bit for each person, but there are some deep-rooted beliefs and or philosophies that I encourage my clients to establish or have conversations around. And so my personal belief is that in order to accomplish any goal or any objective to the best of our ability, okay, so you can accomplish things in other ways, but likely not to the best of your ability. And to do that, you need two things. Number one, it's a vision. Okay, what do you want to accomplish? How does it feel when you've accomplished it? Who are you celebrating with when you have reached that goal? But then secondly, you need a plan or a strategy that's specifically designed to help you fulfill that vision. And the belief is if we have one without the other, we're going to be missing out on some efficiencies or some progress that could have occurred. So for example, if we have a vision but no plan, it's very unlikely that we'll fulfill that in the best way possible. But then on the other end, if you do have a vision, but there's not been a thought out plan or strategy, you could be saving too much. You could be saving too little, or honestly, you could be saving in the wrong place. And so that connection is big, because when you have a vision and an understanding of what you want and the feeling that you get once having accomplished it, you're more inclined to save or invest towards that vision. But if it's unclear, or if it's gray, when someone like myself, or when you're in conversation of, well, where do we do this? The why behind the savings can be a little challenging if you're not clear on the end goal.
Yeah, definitely. And I know we were talking earlier, life circumstances change so much. And it's one of those things that you don't think about preparing for a change or the worst, but if you have prepared for that, then when that change does come, you're okay, or you're at least in a better position than if you weren't thinking or planning about it 5, 10, 15, 20 years ahead of time.
Right. You got it.
So, knowing that people's circumstances are always different, what would you say to the person or the family who, they're really just living paycheck to paycheck? What they bring in just barely is enough to cover either their rent or their house payment and the rest of their bills. So, if you're barely getting by, how do you save, or how do you invest for your future?
So it's a great question. And I think the biggest area or idea that has found some success outside of some strategies is forced savings. And so whether that's through a 401k, whether that's through an auto draft from your checking to your savings, something that doesn't take mental stamina. It just happens automatically. But what happens is, if it's saved, you've almost forgotten about it. And so the money that you do have left over, you can feel good spending it. You can say, look, I've saved what I've needed to, whatever amount that may be. Maybe you start small, but you've saved what you can and what you've needed to, so that when you spend what's left over the rest of the month, you don't have to worry about it. The stress of, did I save, or not having to be able to save, it goes away. So I think that is one method. But when someone is entirely stretched too thin, we have to get to the root of the cause. Is it because we're overspending on food? Is it because we're spending money on material things? And those are completely different, right? Because if you're overspending on material things, guess what? Your closet's going to fill up, and you'll visually see it. You're like, man, I'm buying a lot of shoes, or whatever that is. As far as overspending on food, that's a bit of a challenge, because we consume it and there's no real added effect. I think they gain a few pounds, but as far as, really seeing something add up, you really don't do that. So once again, that's a method. There are some tactics, refinancing debt. Sometimes if you refinance a mortgage, you can reduce your monthly payment. And so maybe that frees up $100 or $200. And that's been a strategy that's been thought after a lot lately, with the interest rates being cut. They have, which is is a good strategy. So I think that's what I would highlight, is just really trying to find out or save. What are some tactics to free up income? And then even more so than that is, if you have the vision, is that enough to make you want to spend less to accomplish what you've set out to?
Perfect. Are you getting a little feedback on your end, or?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, it might be me. I don't know if my internet's running slower, so if it is, I apologize.
No, it's okay.
But yeah, so I guess if we're focusing on maybe someone who, just got out of either high school and they're going into the workforce, or just got out of college and they're going into the workforce, what the process looks like. You have your job. Let's start talking about saving right now versus waiting until you're comfortable. income stream, or maybe at first job.
Okay, you cut up quite a bit, but I think I got enough to work with. I think the biggest of talking with someone who's maybe got their first job out of high school or out of college is getting to the root of it. And it's saying, look, you've been broke your whole life. Now, maybe you've worked a summer job or part-time through school to pay for school, but for the most part, you haven't been making the money that you're now set to make. So even if you start to save 10 or 20% of it, you're still going to have more money than you've had your entire life. And so creating some disciplines from the beginning is crucial because it is a progress. You don't start off and do one thing when you're 22 and have it all figured out because life changes. But if you can create behavior, if you can create discipline on saving money, investing money, or doing what you need to, when the house purchase comes, when the marriage comes, when the kids and the daycare costs come, when college funding comes, when all of these different educational or financial goals come into play, you're so used to saving that it's just a behavior. You're going to continue being able to do it. Now, maybe it varies. Maybe you save a little less to accomplish or accommodate the other goals, but you've afforded yourself the luxury of doing that by starting early and creating behaviors. Because the something you'll learn, the more that you're doing the saving, the more that you're doing the investing, is the sooner you get started, the easier it is. Someone starting young and investing $200 a month could take a lot less off the table later relative to someone who's 45 and really hasn't started yet. They have to overcompensate for those 20 years, and that's challenging to do.
Yeah, and then so you teed me up for a good follow-up question, but I'm going to revert back just a little bit on, how does that strategy, could you play out maybe a little bit of how that strategy changes over time? So, 25-year-old, we have strategy A, because maybe your age and your job, but, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, strategy A probably isn't what they should be doing. So how do you work with your clients, or how do you coach them to say, here's where we are now, 10 years from now, we're going to be doing something different, and here's why, here's what it's going to look like?
Great question. And that's perfect because that's the way that this takes place. It's a progression. It's a process. And so for me, in my belief, and once again, you have to have those core philosophies or be able to borrow from someone's. And mine is protect us first. We have to accomplish the risk management needs first because those are the uncontrollables, right? Those are the things that we can't see coming, the things that we can't do on our own, whether that's an emergency and you've had something medically happen, whether that's your car broke down and you can't afford to buy a new one, but you want to be able to, it's really just protecting what you can. Because the 25-year-old, they don't really have any money. And so viewing themselves as their most valuable asset is a tough conversation because protecting their income is not the most ideal thing the 25-year-old wants to talk about. But if they can just keep waking up on January 1st and working through December 31st throughout their working career, it's likely they're going to make millions of dollars, right? But that's solely predicated on them having the physical ability or the mental ability to do that. And so it's encouraging them to say, look, you can do whatever you want to do if we do this right, but we have to take the things that we can't uncontrol or we can't control off the table. And so we'll really start with those challenging conversations first with the hope that they check those off. Because if we can check off the foundation, then we're really going to solely find ourselves in a wealth accumulation conversation. And the wealth accumulation conversation is a two-way street. It's not only saving and investing, but it's being strategic on how we're paying down debt. And so it's just helping them from a budget standpoint understand how much do you get of your income every month for bills and for lifestyle. Because trust me, Kurt, I like living today. And so we have some money, every month to just do what we want because life is short. We've found that out. And so it's having those conversations, and then also making sure that they're doing what they need to, knowing that it does change over time. We're not always going to be talking about defensive risk management. We are going to be talking about growing wealth. But if you skip that first step and something does happen, it's like we're working backwards and trying to climb uphill.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely hear you there. I know it took me a while to jump into that bridge of, yeah, life insurance is important now when you have a family, 3 kids, anything can happen at any time. So, I know that was a conversation I was not wanting to have because I'm invincible. I'm young. I'm invincible.
Right. I always tell people, Kurt, I said, look, most people who know me know that I'm 5'9" on a good day. Okay. But if someone ever asks me if something's going to happen to me, I automatically turn into this 10-foot tall bulletproof guy that's like not going to happen. And so I can relate to it. I understand that. And so I have to know that, but also put myself from a logical standpoint and say, what are we protecting here? Who are we protecting? And what does it look like to do so?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll go back to the question you teed me up for that we had. Someone sent in earlier.
Okay.
It's so if you're someone who's older,
Okay.
that's a relative term, but not the 25-year-old. Maybe someone who's in their 40 to maybe even up to 60-year-old range, who hasn't started that process and think, man, it's just too late for me. I'm too late in the game. There's no way I can do it. I'm out. What do you tell those clients to try to help them think, there is a way that at any age you can start saving, because you might live to 80 or 90 years old. So if you're 50, you might have 30 or 40 years left.
Right.
So there's still time, but how do you coach them, and then how does that strategy look compared to someone who's just starting out and is in their 20s?
So it's a lot harder for me to get them to start, right? Because the behavior hasn't been built. They haven't flexed that muscle. They haven't built that consistency over time. So once we can get over that and they can see the importance of what they can do, to say, hey, if you saved X amount every month between now and the next 10 years, this is what we would anticipate to have. And so if they can see that, know that, and that's through some simple calculations, but someone like myself can do that in 5 minutes, right? And so it's, once again, attaching that vision, and then helping them put a belief or a strategy or a plan in place to do it. So that's what I would say is number one. But to follow that up is we have to understand the different environment each of us are in related to our age. So the 50-year-old who hasn't started saving yet, they have a better benefit from a Social Security standpoint than the 25-year-old, right? And so it's knowing that by the year of 2033, Social Security is going to start taking a downturn. That's 13 years from now. So if you're going to be retiring between now and 2033, it's likely you're going to get 100% fully funded Social Security, which is a phenomenal benefit because it's guaranteed and they can't take it from you. And so just knowing that, we can say, okay, well, what does that look like? They don't send out the mailings like they used to, but you can jump online and get an estimated monthly benefit at 62, at 67, at age 70, because that's mailbox money, right? Well, they can say, hey, Grant, I need $5,000 a month and my Social Security is $3,000. Okay, that's a start, right? Because I don't have to worry about nor help them plan for that $3,000, right? That's coming in. But where's the other $2,000 going to come from? Well, if we can save aggressively, maybe that's solely where that comes from, and you can step away completely. Or if not, maybe it's a combination of savings and saying, you know what, you may have to work 5-10 hours a week to supplement that lifestyle. Is that okay? Right? Or do we need to reduce the lifestyle that you want to have so you can fully save? Right? So that's where the personalization takes into place, but it's never too late to start doing something. Most of the folks that I work with in that space are what we consider the critical 10. This is the 5 years leading up to retirement and the 5 years into retirement. Those are years you want to get right from a planning perspective, right? And especially because of what we've seen possible in the market. Folks who wanted to retire this year and didn't plan in a position or in a way that allowed them to still do it in the event of a downturn, it's likely they're still working or they're having to retire on less. And so it's just making sure that you have those conversations until that day comes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you hit on a really good point of a downturn. I mean, we don't bank on a pandemic happening and shutting us down, people losing, millions of people losing their jobs, and maybe those jobs not coming back in some certain areas. So from your client pool, have you had anyone who maybe got furloughed, or maybe they were let go and their job disappeared, but they were working with you and they had money set aside in savings or investments where they were able to call you and say, Grant, I need help. What are we looking at?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you for asking. And it's been a roller coaster. Okay, this has been different from every angle, most different from every client. I mean, no one's had something similar occur, but I have had one specific client who highly skilled. Okay, he's in the software industry, very intelligent gentleman, but he got furloughed and he got laid off. And the reasoning was because their industry's in decline in general, but they weren't driving revenue. Okay, and it was because they were travel related. But he took my recommendation on having 6 months worth of emergency fund because he's the sole incomer. Right, it's him. He's got 2 kids, his wife, and he wanted to do something with it. I can remember it was probably a year or 2 ago. He's like, "Why do I have this money here? I need to be doing something with it. I need to put it to work." And I told him, I said, "But that's a part of your plan. That's your foundation. Okay, that's the fail safe. If something happens out of our control, we don't want to have to dip into retirement because there can be penalties, there can be taxes. But we want to have something where we do have the liquidity to turn to and have access to that for an extended period of time. And you have to be okay touching it as well. I do have some clients that are like, I don't want to touch it. And that was where he was at, because he called me and he said, look, what do I do? And I'm not working. I don't have a job. How do I navigate this? And we revisited the budget and said, okay, look, you have 6 months worth of your living expenses. So you could not work for 6 months, and your lifestyle, your savings, none of that's going to change. And that just, you could see it on his face that there was this piece of, oh, okay, almost a deep breath, because he did not want to have to jump into any job, being the sole income earner for his family. He wanted to make sure that he could pursue a job that he's qualified for, and having that money set back is allowing him to do just that. So that has been a great conversation, a great relationship to be a part of, and helping him out.
Yeah, and I can't imagine. I mean, we're so much of what we're talking about. You're planning for the unpredictable. I mean, planning for the future, which none of us can foresee. But as long as you're doing what you can for you, if you have a family, then whatever does come your way, if you've listened to a financial advisor like yourself, hopefully you're in a much better place than if you didn't. So I think I'm trying to look here to see if we have anything else. But yeah, I mean, I think that wrapped up all the questions I got ahead of time. And I was just going to ask you kind of, if people do want to reach out, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Honestly, at this point, we're really busy, but I have built out a staff. So it's me and I have 2 other staff members. One is my wife. She's phenomenal and much more easily communicated with than I am. I'm generally in meetings after meetings, so she's great. And then I also have a new staff that has joined me. So my wife, Nicole, my assistant, Elizabeth, they're phenomenal. And so we're a team. Most people, they call me, they send me an email. But generally it's me being on the outreach. It's me calling them, because to your point earlier, Kurt, people don't wake up and they're like, oh, I need life insurance, or I should probably have my retirement check. It's just not this natural thing that we are drawn towards because we're so busy. I mean, we're arguably the busiest generation ever because of how connected we are and how timely things have become. So it's just scheduling time. We can have an introductory conversation, share with them the work that I do, really engage with them in their situation and what they hope to accomplish, because this is not a one size fits all. This is different to each and every person that I work with, and just making sure that they have put their best foot forward. So we operate in a little bit of a different way. We do not charge a planning fee. So for having a conversation with me, it does not cost. And I did that because I didn't want to have to. Because most of the people who need what I do or need the foundational planning, they can't afford to pay a planning fee. And so I've removed that cost and really just want to have a conversation with them to see if I can help. If I can, great. If it's something that I can help them with, awesome. But if not, hopefully they've left the conversation better than when they came in. So you can, send me an email, give me a phone call, or, even reach out on Facebook.
Perfect. Well, I'll make sure we drop your email and phone number just in the comments area, just so anyone who comes back and watches the video, they'll be able to see it. And yeah, really appreciate you coming on here, sharing your insights with us, and hopefully everyone who watched or everyone who will watch will get something out of it, and hopefully a few people reach out to you to start planning for their financial future.
Yeah, no, Kurt, I appreciate you thinking of me. More than happy to help. This is something where I always tell people it's not really teaching people stuff they don't know. It's just reminding them of the things they should be doing. They can make the decisions. They can do what they need to. It's just reminding them of, hey, have you done this yet? So happy to play that part. And Kurt, thank you again.
All right. Well, Grant, take it easy and have a great rest of the day.
All right. See y'all.
See ya. Thank you.
You're welcome.